I really wanted to be a singer and an actor. When you have your dance company, your dance group, House of Absolute, it's important to us that we're honest within what we're doing. I think my heritage is always going to be important to me as a person. I'm very influenced by like African diasporic cultural things like hip hop. I'm part of different communities. That's the tricky thing about motherhood. But it's not just motherhood, it's just life. I'm Cheng and you're watching Behind the Scene.
Kids have to understand that your journey is your own.
I was raw power.
He wanted to enroll me in football, and Mum was like, I don't think that's what this child is meant to do.
I think if you can't be yourself in a space, it's tricky and it's hard.
I discovered who I was and I was going to own that position. You have to, otherwise they're going to cancel the Waacking category and then Waacking will die. Next question.
I was born in Luton and raised in Luton, and my parents are from Hong Kong and my grandparents from China. And yeah, I've got a brother and a sister. I've been asked the sibling question. I think that's really important because my brother and sister are really important to me. Yeah, early days of Julia, living in Luton, very, very humble upbringing. Parents working in a takeaway since I was 12. Family business, just been working from a young age. It's quite a multicultural town, it's Luton, and it's a tough, grindy sort of place where, yeah, the upbringing is you didn't have much and you do as much as you can do to get by. As a little girl, I loved sports, so I was very sporty. I played sports all the time, so I probably thought I'd be a sports person or a teacher. Like I really loved learning and I really respected teachers in my schooling, and I thought, okay, maybe I'd love to be a teacher, but if I'm a teacher then I'll see all these students go past and I'll miss them and I'll probably will be sad to see them. That was my kind of thought process. I started doing a lot of sports when I was 7 and did a lot of netball. So I had this really amazing PE teacher when I was really young, and I played for the year above me, and we played a lot of teams, we competed a lot as a team against all the other schools in the borough and things like that. And then it kind of happened for across 4 years, and then I loved it so much, and I was captain of my team. It was just things like that I really relished in team competition, working together, but also winning and achieving something and pushing past things. So sports really taught me that. I used to always love to sing and dance anyway, and actually as a little girl, as much as wanting to be a teacher and wanting to be loving sports, there's a part of me that thought I'm going to be an actor one day, or I'm going to be a singer. And then when I got to this high school thing, I was like, I also love dance as well, and I always loved to dance innately in parties and stuff. So in high school I took drama classes a lot, and we didn't have dance classes, but in talent shows we'd make up dance routines to compete and things like this. So it's kind of started from the seed of that, really. And I really appreciate that now, because when you think about it now as an adult, you know that the teachers are just doing that in their own spare time, trying to make opportunities for the students. But when you're young, you just think teachers are just doing that. That's expected sort of thing slightly. We used to have this youth club in high school, and everyone used to once a week dance in upstairs. The upstairs would be a little club and the DJ, and there'd be a little shop where you could buy sweets and treats, and it'd be dim lighting, a club sort of thing, a party. And then downstairs there'll be sports in the main hall. It's funny actually, because now if you're asking me these questions, there's loads of memories coming up. But we just be dancing and dancing to Mace and all these other tracks, and yeah, it's such a big part of my kind of first seed of loving music and dance and the socialness and being around people and friends. And then downstairs in the hall you got sports going on as well, so you kind of had a bit of both. I never really sewed that together before, but now I'm okay, that's interesting. And then so high school happened, and then went to college, and I wanted to study dance. And I couldn't study dance because they said you haven't done dance before, so you can do drama or you can do performing arts, and because you've studied drama at school, you've got a GCSE in it. But dance, you haven't got any background, so you can't study it. And I was like, okay, right, fine. Then I'll do performing arts. And that's cool because it was drama, music and dance, but you just couldn't do straight dance. And then we'd do like, again, we would have like teachers who put on productions once a year, and I would audition for those productions and get into like the shows. Like the first show was Cabaret, and I was a Kit Kat girl in Cabaret. And then the second show was Hansel and Gretel, it was an opera. I remember thinking opera, but I was a witch in it. And so it's like those sort of things give you opportunities to kind of your first stepping stones in a way. And I think they're really important stepping stones, even though they're amateur productions, but they're opportunities for you to kind of see what your potential could be. University, I wanted to study dance again, but I couldn't because I really failed quite miserably in the auditions because I had not great training. So between college and university, I got scouted in a club, and I was dancing in a club. I got scouted to compete in a dance competition, dancing and modelling competition, by Topshop, which is probably not even existing now, and Tony and Guy. Yeah, and so I learned loads of choreography, did like catwalk stuff, and came second. And I thought, actually, you know what? I actually can learn. This is not bad. I'm not bad at dancing and picking up routines and stuff. And then I just took an open class in Luton. Like every Wednesday, we took a local class, which was like £4 a class in a local gym. And my cousin, me, and my best friend, we went there. We would just do these routines, learn from this guy called Eric. And I think he called them street jazz or something, street dance. I can't remember what he called them, but they're great. And we did like local performances in hospitals or like town centre, and like local sort of community things. And it's cringy when I think about it now, and I think, oh my God, how did I even do that? But yeah, we do like these little routines, and that's Luton. Mm-hmm. And then when I came to study in university, I studied drama, theatre and French. So I had a joint degree, and I would do dance outside. So I'd just keep like any money that I'd earn, like every week I would study during the week, go back to Luton, drive back to Luton, help my parents at the takeaway, use that money to kind of take classes in London. And that was my routine for like 3-4 years. And within one of those years, I went to France and learnt jazz and ballet and languages as well. So I got access to kind of more classical training when I was in France and studying in Lyon. And I met my teacher who taught me modern dance at the age of 23. And he taught me one-on-one, and like sometimes I didn't have money, and he'd be like, just come to class anyway. And he taught me like modern techniques like Graham and Horton and jazz. And then at the same time, simultaneously, I was competing a lot and training a lot in clubs. I was jamming with a lot of dancers, and that's when I first joined a crew called IP, Immigration Poppers, outside Pineapple. And every Saturday they would jam there and train, and I was kind of the latter. And like they'd formed for quite a while back then. I joined them around 2008, I believe, or 2009. And yeah, so I started like, they're all mainly poppers, and I was kind of the hip hopper person. Although I loved watching them, and I understand like the popping a lot but I wouldn't really say I'm a popper. So yeah, that was massive. Like I have a lot of family, a lot of close people from that crew, that family. Yeah, and then I competed a lot in clubs, in hip hop, and then travelled a lot. I went to New York to train and learn contemporary dance, and then in the clubs there was a lot of house. So that was around 2009. That's when I met Tyrone. He was so generous. Like he was such a generous teacher. That was in 2009. And the classes were very small. There were like 6 people in a class. And at that time, Egler was there in New York. I bumped into her at a club. Sean was there. Brooklyn was there. Vicky was there in that same year, going to New York at that same time, that summer. And it was House Dance Internationals. and the battles that was taking place in New York. And it was interesting because all those people were there. I mean, I didn't know that they were going to be there, but they are people that are in IHOW as well. So that's the reason why I'm saying that we had already kind of crossed over in New York at that time, and then subsequently after they were also selected to be part of IHOW.
Yes.
At that time, another close friend of ours from IP had just passed away, and so Carlos, who I mentioned, is part of IP as well. He passed away, and before that, we had James painting who passed away, and at that time, I was just like, I had already been thinking about what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? What am I doing with learning this style? What am I doing in this community? What do I want to give? What's the legacy? What do you want to pass on? If you want to pass on some knowledge of some sort, or what happens after? Like, so I've travelled all these things. I've tried to get information as much as possible. What happens after? Does it just go with me? Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, and I was also really hungry to like learn all the time. So I'd always travel to learn. I'd be like, I get frustrated with the UK scene. I'd be like, I don't feel like I'm inspired here. Like, I need to travel to get inspired. And then after I was like questioning myself, like, have I actually tried to do anything? There must be people here that are willing to learn and want to learn, and there must be lots of talent here as well. And not even just talent, but commitment and a drive to want to learn this style, or similar energy for me. And so, yeah, that kind of gave me, our friend passing away gave me an extra kick up the butt to be like, do something with your time. Who are people that come to my mind that could potentially, who've shown an interest in this style, who I think actually have really great physicality and ability and movement to be able to do this style actually, and who we can who I can feed off in a good way, and we can bounce off energy wise. So that was, so Fionn was one of the people, because we'd already started exchanging in the clubs, we were already exchanging in the clubs with Jojo. We'd already had conversations about working together in different ways as well. There was Sam Lou, who I taught at East London University East London, and Hannah Anderson Ricketts, who I'd come across from, I think it might have been Dixon again, because they studied together at Lewisham College, and I'd seen her in the club a bit as well, and I thought, this is a good energy people. And then so we just jammed, and we'd go to, I just messaged them and said, would you be interested in, all I need is like commitment, if you're interested to learn the style. We just trained together and things like that. So then we started training together at Charing Cross Underground Station. Dilo saw us training and he was like, oh, would you like to do a showcase? And I was like, okay, cool. And then it's good because you have an aim to do something for something, and you create something together then. And he was like, what's the name? And I was like, oh, we need to get a name, guys, what's the name? And then, I was like, well, you guys got any ideas? And my teacher, which I told you about, my contemporary dance teacher, had called me a long time ago, and he sometimes calls me and says things and I write them down in my notebooks. And he said to me one time, a long time ago, he said, when you have your dance company, your dance group, House of Absolute, and it's a really good name. I think you should call them House of Absolute. And I was like, what? I was like, I'm not creating a dance group, what are you talking about? And like, so that was a long time ago and I wrote it down somewhere. And so when I was like looking through my stuff, I don't know how I found it, stumbled upon it, and I was like, oh, what do you think of House Absolute? And everyone was like, yeah, that's nice, that's a good name. And then that's how the name of House Absolute was birthed.
Hush not, child, and don't cry. Your folks might understand you by and by. Just move on up toward your destination. Though you may find from time to time complications.
House Absolute. Yes, I formed by this glue of punking, waacking, and also we also do other things. And how do we evolve what sort of performance or creations we want to make, or creativity, or work? I think one of the highlights for me is like our evening at ICA, which was showing all different types of works that we've done, interweaved with interviews, and then different types of performances and conversations with the company, and seeing our work as well. There's things like our shows at V&A, which was really beautiful as well. We did like a run of about 20 odd shows at the V&A, creating our first piece aimed at more as a younger age group of storytelling. Highlights are just like being together sometimes and just like eating food together, or being there for each other when it's really tough. Like we all go through tough times, and I think it takes a lot of energy to run a company collective and keep everyone together when everyone's also an artist in their own right and a brilliant artist at what they do. We're still here, and it's like sometimes you get quite patchy, sometimes you get project. You deal with things by project to project, and I think in a way I think that's a great thing. And there's parts of me that's like, oh, if we had like consistent funding all the time, maybe we would be able to do whatever we want all the time, which is one side. But then if you don't have that, you also have much more freedom to be able to do what you, and stay true to what you do, rather than having to stick to a structure because the funding requires that this, you have to do X, Y, and Z because of this. How do you keep integrity? Well, I think it's just because it's important to us that we're honest within what we're doing, and that we're communicative to each other, and we give space as much as possible for people to be themselves. And I think if you can't be yourself in a space, it's tricky and it's hard. In the end, it's just about what feels right. You go with your gut feeling, and you go with what the actual work is saying. Each one is about this work. Okay, so what can we do best to this? How can we plunge the most deepest part of ourselves and give something from there, even if you're talking about sustainability and it's a children's show. But how do you not downplay that a child who's maybe 5 watching this show can understand? How do you not downplay the music? How do you not downplay the text that you're using? How do you not downplay the movement? Because they're 5. So sometimes you have expectation of what a children's show will be, but we just do it as if it's like for an adult. At Warrior Queens, when we did Sadler's Wells, that was one of the highlights as well. Doing that show last year was a lot, because we've been working there's so many, like being on the main stage and having an evening of a double bill, and then there's still work to do, and it's not finished, but there's so many highlights. And I think about it and I look at it in reflection, it's like we've actually done quite really a good amount of stuff, and yeah, I'm pretty proud of us that we're still like talking to each other. I'm not saying that in the way that we should hate each other. I don't mean like that. I mean as in like we're still communicating tight, and we love each other still. Do you know what I mean? And I think nothing's for forever. Do you know what I mean? So it's great that you have strong ties with people, and that it feels like family. always loved theatre. Always loved but the reason why probably is because I was dancing, and the things that I was finding myself auditioning for or creating was either the commercial world, which I felt like didn't really float my boat so much. I was like doing these auditions and these castings, and I was like, this is really I'm not enjoying this. Like being in a room full of people and I'm blatantly not going to get this job because everyone's got blonde hair and there's me. So I don't think I'm going to get this job. And I'd do my best to kill it, but also a part of me is like, you're not going to choose me just because of the way I look anyway. So there was part of that I already knew when I walked into a room sometimes. Or you have a room where you're going into and everyone looks East Asian, and it's like, you want a specific typecast, you want so it's like, there's those sort of things, and I felt like watered down sort of movements, so that those auditions I was like, this movement isn't inspiring me as well. And then there was companies, so you can do company work, and I applied for, I would audition for companies, and ballet would be the first round, and I'd be like, well, my ballet is not that bad. So I probably wouldn't get past the first round of ballet. And then there was also a part of my brother and sister really influenced me a lot, like I mentioned to you before. So I first heard a lot of hip hop from my brother and listening to my brother playing music, like playing Blackstreet and NWA and Tupac. And so I listened to a lot of kind of secondhand music, listened to my brother's music. And Bruce Lee was one of his inspirations. And he would read a lot of Bruce Lee stuff, and he would train a lot of martial arts and things as well, my brother. So, and I learned a lot of martial arts from my dad growing up, and then also just my own interest in the martial arts. And so I would read a lot of books that my brother would share with me of Bruce Lee's books and his philosophies on things. And one of the quotes is, to hell with circumstance, I make my own circumstances, or something like this as a quote. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, you make your own opportunities, even if you don't have your opportunities. There's no excuse for it. You just make your own opportunities and create your own things. And if that's not there for you in terms of society or in the environment that you're in, then make your own stuff. So in the end, it's like, well, I don't fit into these things. So, and my movement is not within a specific type of one thing, because I've learnt lots of different things. And so I just thought, okay, well, I'll create my own stuff, and I applied for a commission. What can dance learn from theatre, you were asking? I think dance, it's weird because physicality and movement and the body is so much of what theatre is for me. And so much of theatre and movement and physicality is so much of what movement is in terms of what dance is. So for me, they kind of are existing similarly because it's about the physicality. Maybe one is more music, but theatre is also on sound design and the musicality and the rhythm and the pacing of timing and space and silence and words. So in the end, I realise that it's all about timing. Everything is about timing and the space in between. If you're a theatre maker and you're an actor, for example, and all you do is work with text, which is not true because you're always working with physicality as well as an actor. But if you think of it as dance, and you're learning movement and rhythm and routine and choreography and more, then you learn more to be in your body, I'd say. And within dance, sometimes you're always being in your body. But then when you kind of go into theatre world, it's more about the intention. And I mean, both are actually, if you're doing them well, I think. I think my heritage is always going to be important to me as a person. So it always will translate into my work in some way. Sometimes it's consciously like, I want to look into this because it's about my lineage. Of course, sometimes a lot of theme is coming from that. And some of it just comes out because that's just my natural influence of what I've seen growing up. It's part of my DNA of things that I've seen, watching, hearing, growing up with. So it influences me without me thinking that subconsciously sometimes. Look at me, like I can't even be in front of anything without, you can see that I'm from my lineage. You might not know where in East Asia or Southeast Asia it would be, but you can clearly see that I'm of some sort of East Asian heritage. And I love that, and I'm really proud of it. And since I was young, my dad's always been like, you're Chinese, you are Chinese, and you're Chinese, and you're Chinese, and you're Chinese. And although the outside, I've grown up with a lot of like racism, grown up with a lot of like things that kind of alienate you and like kind of people that discriminate you just from, that's how it is. You just accept it because it's part of you. You just accept it. When you know it, you just accept it. But then as you grow up and you realize that these things aren't, when you want to speak up, you just speak up now. Do you know what I mean? But when I say accept it, I mean it's like these things that are very small sometimes and like invisible or like very subtle, and you think, huh? Oh, that didn't feel right. But those things are always happening, and they still do happen now even. So it's just part of it. But I'm very proud of my heritage. I'm really proud of where I come from, and I'm very influenced by other cultures a lot. And if I think about it, like I'm very influenced by my heritage, Chinese culture, but I'm very influenced by like African diasporic cultural things like hip hop, like dance, music, all those things all the music that I dance to, it's like, you can't deny that. That's another continent of influence. And so whenever I go into any sort of project or anything, it's like, what honestly has influenced me? Okay, Chinese culture, martial arts sometimes, all the different art forms, hip hop, my processes that I learned, myself crafting how I move in the club. It always comes back to that sometimes, how you craft in the club, how you craft in exchanges and ciphers. That's part of my process in theatre making and making work all the time. And I only learned that from, I get that from the UK hip hop scene. I get that from the UK club culture. So as part of my kind of Chinese heritage, there's also this kind of like British kind of influence, because that's the reason why I'm colliding with all these other cultures, is because I'm brought up here, and that in the youth club I'm listening to these tracks because the DJs were from Caribbean West Indian descent, and then the school has got loads of people from South Asia. You got all these mixes of people, so it's like yeah, I feel like I don't shy away from all the different things that influence me. And being Chinese and Chineseness is one part of it, but all those other things are also part of it. Oh, mate. It's a whole new level game changer. When your body transforms and then you give life, it's just like so surreal. My priorities are different. I have much less time and I actually don't have less time. I have to be more selective of what I'm doing with my time. I've not been dancing so much, but I've been creating a lot still. But training hard and training. This is my next goal now, and I'm really lucky, and I feel really grateful that my body is my body, and I'm really grateful that it's come back slightly, but I need to work at it, and I can't just rely on my natural kind of. I still need to strengthen up and those sort of things. So, as a performing artist, as my own craft, and as a dancer, I feel like I need to work on that so much more. You know, as a creative and like, you know, making work and choreographing or creative directing, I think it's more about how tired you can be sometimes. And you need to be fresh for things to be able to flow and alert to be able to be following your instinct. And that's the way that I like to work. I like to work with improvisation. I like to work with instinct and gut feeling and intuition and creating a space where people can bounce things, and then it flourishes into something else. That's the process. And so sometimes when you're tired, it really hinders it. Or yeah, but it's all right. I'm much better now. But that's a journey, and I think things like going to dance events, going to battles, or that's already been hard anyway because of working and all the projects that I need to kind of be able to give myself fully to. Sometimes it's hard to divert and go somewhere else into a different world when you need to focus on one thing. When I'm making work, yes, you see all that stuff in the theatre world, you see stuff in the dance world and choreography world. Then you've got your hip hop world and that world of UK scene, the club scene, and trying to spread out the energy. And then you've got company stuff, and then you've got family stuff. It's like that's the tricky thing about motherhood. But it's not just motherhood; it's just life. As you grow and you have other commitments as you grow up and stuff, you can't always be like 20 odd, spending time in the clubs up to 4 a.m. and just driving home late. You know what I mean? Not sleeping for a whole night. I used to do that a lot. Highlights of my career. I mean, I can't really not mention Cabaret, which is a musical that opened in 2021. It's a massive highlight because feels like a full circle thing, because I told you that I was in Cabaret when I was in college, and I've never done a West End musical before. I've never even choreographed a musical before. That's definitely a highlight because the scale of the production, and it's still on now, and the team that I've worked with on that show, and the people that I've encountered from working on that show, I just feel like, yeah, it's offered a window of different insight, and I learned a lot about myself. Other highlights, I mean, for me, like, highlights are like clubbing, jamming with people. I've got to say, like, House Absolute is a highlight because it's love, and it's people. IP is a highlight because it's family and it's genuine people that just care about each other and are good, kind people. And alongside that, they're great artists. And so you're inspired all the time to be doing what you do with each other. Yeah, I don't take anything for granted. You know, there's always lots of things that you can do, but this project or that project, and I love a highlight is my mum watching my shows. She used to work in takeaway all the time, and shows would be on Fridays, Saturdays, and they're the busiest days on takeaway. So that's a massive highlight of her, just being able to watch a show or see something, or listening to great DJs. Like when you have those nights where it's like you don't even notice the changes, but or you notice them, you're like really like just being with the music, at one of the music. They're the highlights for me. I think they're the beautiful things, and that happens through every process. You meet and exchange through all these different encounters, and I can't really say that one highlight is more than the other. And I mentioned Cabaret because that's the most recent thing, and after lockdown as well, and it's kind of bigger scale thing, but all the little things are just as important for me. And it's not really about this production because it's so big, or this more mainstream, more public, or all the things that we've done, I think, are all rolling ball things to get me to where I am right now. The future of Julia looks like going to the train, do more classes, eat well, drink more water. I need to get stronger physically and get sharp in my head a bit more, so I'm not so tired, and that's the future. And then I have lots of different projects coming up where I'm working on some theatre productions and different projects which are about storytelling with movement and choreography. What's great is that I'm doing a lot of theatre stuff, and I have been, but some of it's like more normally like a straight theatre play, and it's interesting for me because I'm like, that's a straight piece of script, and then for me I pull out the things where I see movement here. You could do a really great movement scene here, like with this character, and I think that's really beautiful because there's more space for movement in places of, or pieces of work, or classic works, or new work that maybe wouldn't have movement in it before. So I'm really interested in how you can how choreography and the body can storytell in lots of different worlds. And you know me, like I always love like, how do you do it in film? How do you do it in photography? How do you do it in a piece of art? How do you do it in words? How do you do it with your movement? But that's kind of my main thing is my body and what speaks through the body. And so the future of Julia Cheng is just to keep chiseling away at your craft and come back to yourself to sharpen your tools. That's me right now.
So, if my family was to describe me in one word, they would say...
Crazy.
Live music or banging DJ set?
But live music is a banging DJ set. That's not really like a live... That's live though, isn't it, DJs? Sorry, I'm like one of those.
Choreography or freestyle?
Freestyle. Ah, that's a hard one, but I'll say freestyle because that's, yeah.
Well-fitted beret or flowy layers?
Both!
When judging, 3 things you look for in order of priority.
Oh, in order of priority, musicality, foundation technique, creativity.
Performing or choreography?
At the moment, choreography.
Best song to wind down to?
Dream 13 or PJ Morton or Something Soweto.
Best song for the warm-up for the first week of rehearsals?
Something Soweto, Kwamampela, and then maybe that's not pronounced right, but the album is a 2014 album.
And lastly, when is Julia putting her own show in West End?
Do you know what? I've been thinking about this. Maybe in a few years' time. I need to sit down and write it.
We're all waiting for it. Thank you, Julia, and that's it.
Thank you, Angelika. Thank you, Daniel.
My identity of who Archie was always in the shadow because, you know, I allowed other people to tell me who I was.